Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, but he is the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Monday, September 2nd. It is Labor Day, Joel. We are officially in September. We're at the final stretch of the MLB season. The Yankees have lost 2 series in a row since the last time we spoke against the Nationals and the Cardinals. This team is reeling, to say the least, Joel. It feels like, as a Yankees fan, I know since last time we spoke, we were all happy and giddy, like, oh, they're looking better. Like maybe Judge and Soto are going to carry them. But this team has lost 9 straight rubber match games. They're 12-12 in their last 24 games. I don't know, Joel. To place it for this team, they're half game up in the AL East. For you, in the sense of where they are right now, just real quick, how do you judge with this team? Like, is it like are you still in the mindset of I still need to see it for them to actually win the AL East and prove that they're one of the best teams in the American League or Major League Baseball? Or is this just what we're going to be the rest of the season? It's going to be clutching your hands a little bit, like that's dumb baseball moments, or I don't know, Joel. That's where I kind of want to start off with you. This team, and just off the top, I don't know how to describe right now what's going on with this team.
Yeah, so this is why it's better to be me and not be a fan and not go on what feels like this 6-month roller coaster ride. Because I do wonder if we were doing the Orioles post or the Guardians post or the Dodgers post, etc. Like the Yankees have the best record in the American League. And never has a team that is literally, if the season ended today, the American League would go through the Bronx, had more people shit on them than this Yankee team has had shit on them. Having said that, they deserve a lot of the shit.
Yeah.
They, I kept thinking about this. Aaron Boone used to use the term a lot that, like, we need to be buttoned up. And it feels like that's one of the manager's most important jobs is to kind of like where their team is not playing well. And by the way, I mean, yesterday was one of the worst played baseball games I've ever seen.
One of the ugliest I've ever seen.
I mean, both teams should be condemned from playing this week. That should be the punishment for playing a game as horseshit as that game was yesterday on both sides of it. But the Yankees played really poorly. And both the Saturday and Sunday loss for them felt similar in that they fell behind, made a charge, and then just couldn't close the gap and lost to a team that, by the way, came in not hitting, specifically not hitting with runners in scoring position, and that beat up their pitching a little bit on Saturday and Sunday. Ryan, I think, especially for the American League, we'll see if like the Phillies or the Dodgers or the Brewers stand out in the National League ultimately. I think the playoffs is simply going to be who's healthy and hot for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You could convince me that that's the Yankees, and you could convince me the Yankees will fall to the wild card, lose 2 straight games, and we'll be sitting on an Aaron Boone watch in a month if he's coming back or not. So to me, I think both options are over. I think the best version of the Yankee roster potentially is coming within the week. They got Rizzo back. That might not be great with what we saw earlier, but everything is by comparison. Ben Rice stopped hitting. DJ LeMahieu looks like he might be just completely shot. So if Rizzo could get to league average, if Clark Schmidt gets anywhere near where he was earlier in the season, which was a top 15 starter in the American League, which might be able to have them put Luis Gil in the bullpen as kind of a hybrid rover if he doesn't spray the ball all over the place. We've seen how high-end his stuff is. As a guy who can go after people late in a game, I wouldn't put it past that he could close some games, big games, if need be, if he could do it. I think Ian Hamilton could be helpful to their bullpen if he could get back in the next. It all feels like that's in the next week.
Okay.
And then, of course, the question that won't die is about left field and whether they ever do the Jasson Dominguez thing or not.
So that's Joel. That's where I wanted to steer this conversation. After we
that's the story. I mean, I wrote about it for Sunday's paper.
Yep.
It's kind of the story of the moment, and I think it's easier. But by the way, I want to begin this by saying I would bring him up, and I would play him.
So after we talked about this last week, right? Like we had debated, and you said, Ryan, would you sit Verdugo? I would. I mean, he is one of the worst qualified hitters since May. I understand he had a decent series in hitting singles against this Cardinals team, but 12 at bats.
I find that bullshit.
So do I, because I don't believe in 12 at bats.
Not you. By what the Yankees said about it.
Okay.
Which is he hit in Washington. the Yankees are not a small sample organization.
Mm.
And Aaron Boone is one of these guys who also will tell you there's no such thing as hot or not, kind of thing.
Right.
So, like, when you're saying, oh, he was swinging it well in Washington, that's a kind of small sample that if I used it in a question, they would shit on, right? And they want to use it because they want to stick with Verdugo. And sticking with Verdugo is a legitimate thing because one item, the way I wrote the column is, in sports, everybody loves the backup quarterback, right? Because he's the guy who's not playing, and you're
Correct.
watching the guy who is. And in your belief system, you believe the guy not playing will always perform better. And we don't know that. And Aaron Boone has to live in a world where if Dominguez comes up and falls flat on his face, can he renew Verdugo and get him back into left field? Or does he, he knows he's a guy, you could see from the body language, he gets down on himself with all the fourth.
I mean, yesterday that ball in left field drops right there in the fair, and you could tell right then and there. It's like, okay, I think it's getting to him a little bit in the head where he's now in his own head.
It felt a little Aaron Hicks-ish.
Yep.
Like a ball dropping there and a player. And so I think because the bar is low, I would take a shot to see if Dominguez could do this. But what I don't know, and only the Yankees can know in a better way, is what are they saying internally about Dominguez? Mm-hmm. Like, I know fans want to throw minor league numbers out, but like Ben Rice's minor league numbers this year were better than Dominguez's.
Correct.
And then you get to major league pitching, and it is what it is. People will then say, well, he's a bigger prospect than Rice. Right?
Correct.
But Volpe was a bigger prospect than Dominguez. And how has that offense looked for 2 weeks? And offense was supposed to be his calling card. Having said all that, I think that Verdugo's headspace, body language, body of work right now is enough that I would try Dominguez and hope that he gives me a run, by the way, like it could work this way also. Shane Spencer gave the Yankees a run in 98 and never repeated it, but it helped them win a World Series that last month in the postseason. Now it was surrounded by a much better version of the Yankees than this version, but it certainly helped. I would try to catch some lightning in a bottle with him. But I do think that when you're in charge and not just somebody who's sitting here like we are or talk radio or watching the game, you do have to play the
what are you saying internally as an organization about this?
How does it play in your clubhouse? This is I got to tell you, Ryan, I've done this for a very, very long time, fortunately and unfortunately, right? And the guys who travel the whole road in a clubhouse, they do form a bond with the team. And it is hard to say, that guy who kind of spilled his blood, we're now going to turn the page on him. Now, there's always a coldness to sport. Everyone always is looking for next from the top of the organization down. But there's that. And so I would flip this over and say, if you are going to do that, would you also put Oswaldo Cabrera at third base to defend for Chisholm late in the game? He's clearly a grade or two better than him at third base. And that's like one of those ones where, like, if you do it, Chisholm, who I think has shown early on, he is a proud player. Do you lose him? And now their difference between Chisholm and Verdugo is Chisholm is part of your team next year.
Right.
Verdugo is not going to be part of your team. So I think that has to be considered. But if we're just playing the only thing that matters is now.
Correct.
And every game is precious.
Correct.
I would argue Cabrera should play third base for Chisholm late in games the Yankees lead. And that I would go and I put it in, it's not apples to apples, but it's apples to oranges. It's in the Venn diagram. I think that's a similar decision as the Verdugo decision, which is you're taking the starter off the field who has pride, who the clubhouse might feel a certain way about, and putting somebody else in, which is easier for us to do than Aaron Boone, whose calling card is his players know at 100% he has their back. That is his calling card. If that is removed, now, again, just to further this, though, it might not be his calling card for very long if the Yankees don't win the division and or get bounced early.
That's for damn straight, Joel.
He only has an option for next year. As much as Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman like Boone, I would not bet against them going against the fan sentiment and continuing to stick with him and say he's going to do better than whatever is out there.
Right.
But it does put him on the chopping block in a more significant way. And so I do think the only thing for a team that has no idea how much longer it will get the kind of season it's getting out of Judge, where Cole is now currently healthy and still in his prime years, and the only year you know you have with Juan Soto, I think whatever you think you can do to maximize this season, feelings have to go out the window and you'll mend them. And that's your strength, to be able to go to a player before you do the tough thing and say, we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, I expect you to stay ready. You're a pro and we're paying you. Now, that sounds good. I think you'll lose Verdugo.
Right. And but here's the thing, Joel, and you're not committed to him financially after the season, to your point.
Yeah.
He's a free agent. So feelings may be hurt, but at the end of the day, the best 28 players need to be on this roster. And it feels like the best 28 players are not on this roster right now.
Again, what we don't know is we don't have internal scouting reports on Dominguez.
Totally understood. But what we do have, though, is a large enough sample size from Verdugo this season where I've run him out to left field every single day. And he is the 23rd out of 24th qualified left fielders in all of baseball when it comes to WRC. Plus, his slash line, his WAR is -0.3 since May 4th. He is not a good baseball player anymore. His BABIP is worst in his career. His exit velo on his balls put in play is the lowest in his career. He's not good versus fastballs anymore. The sample size is large enough.
You can see it. The ball doesn't come off his bat.
Right. I mean, so every day,
one home run in the second half of this season. He does. The ball doesn't come off his bat. And I'll tell you one other reason why I would do it, Ryan. Because if it doesn't work, and I lose Verdugo.
Right.
Am I really going to get way less out of putting Oswaldo Cabrera in left field than I'm getting out of Verdugo?
That's what. If you're willing to say,
is Cabrera, who by the way did some of that in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Then I'll take the chance of getting lightning in a bottle with Dominguez.
Correct.
And if Verdugo looks at me and goes, I can't go back out there, man, I'll go, okay.
I'm going to Cabrera.
We'll put Cabrera out there.
Yeah.
So it does. It also leads to the question, and by the way, they don't have to get to this point, right? If they're going to get John Birdie back on the roster at some point in the next week, which I assume they will, and the guy Ellis they brought up as
Duke
the
Ellis
runner will go, but that's just a placeholder. That's
well, it's a slap in the face to fans because you're telling us that Dominguez,
you're looking for reasons. This is the whole fucking society now. It's a grievance society looking for reasons to be pissed off. You can only bring up the guys who are on your 40-man roster. John Birdie is going to be a pinch runner when he's healthy. They just brought up a pinch runner. So it's really like you want them to bring up Dominguez and they're not ready to do it. That is not a slap in the face. That is a decision by the team. You think that a slap in the face would be if they're sitting in their offices, Ryan, going, let's fuck with the fans and not do it.
Okay, but don't.
They're actually sitting in their offices going, let's fuck with fans. Like everyone's job.
That's not what I'm saying, Joel. What I am saying, though, is that this is an organization that's telling us externally there's no lane for Dominguez to play every single day. That's bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that.
Well,
there's no reason for Verdugo to be playing left field every day.
There's no lane to play. By the way, again, let's start with this. I would bring him up. But if their internal decision is that there is more harm than good, they don't really believe Dominguez is ready, and or they think it will do great harm to their clubhouse, and or they still think the total player of Verdugo is better than the total player they get out of Dominguez, that's the decision they're making. They're not making a decision of, like, they're very aware. They're a sensitive organization. They're very aware their fans want this change made. So the easy thing to do would be to make the change. I am going to trust that these are people who understand what's on the line. They might be making the wrong decision.
The same people that have,
making a decision to slap their fans in the face. That feels immature by a fan base to believe that there's a group of people sitting in the Bronx going, nah, 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 nah. We know that you want us to do this, but we're not going to do it. Let's call them incompetent.
That's what I would call them. Yes.
Yes, but that's different from saying they're slapping you in the face.
Well,
because
I think
slapping you in the face is a purposeful act to make you feel bad. They are not doing this to make you feel bad. I'd like to believe all 30 teams, even the 107 lost White Sox, are trying to make the best decisions possible for whatever goals they're trying to achieve. I would say that if we lined up the Yankee officials and said, you understand the goal here is to win a championship, who do you think gives you the best chance of winning a championship playing left field every day? The majority opinion would probably be Verdugo. We could say that decision is wrong.
That's wrong.
We can say that decision is incompetent.
It's incompetent.
But I don't think we can say it's a slap in the face, because a slap in the face is an action designed to piss you off on purpose.
Maybe they're doing it ignorantly then. They're doing it ignorantly and slapping us in the face, if you want to call it that. I understand what you're saying, and slap in the face is purposeful and saying it to the fans like this is what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, though, let me ask you this, Joel, and this is a big what-if scenario, and I know you hate hypotheticals, but I'm going to say this. Dominguez needs 130 at-bats this season. He has 35 already to keep his rookie status for 2025, right? What happens if he gets called up after that Cubs series where they're mathematically playing it out, and now we know he can't get 130 career at-bats this season piled up, and then he keeps his rookie eligibility next year? Are you telling me that's not a slap in the face to fans and saying, oh, we care more about that draft pick in 2026, 2027, wherever the hell it is?
I don't think, again, I don't know that they're doing that. But even if they were doing that, that's a strategy. It's not a slap in the face.
You're not, but then you're not committed to beat. You're 12-12 in August.
Like, you and I could put priority, like we are living only for today, and we could put the priority on today. They're running a big picture organization. Again, I think that would be a stupid thing to do, because if you do that, you're not only depriving the at-bats in the moment, which you, by the way, don't have to do. You could give them 3 days off the rest of the year, correct, and you'll get to whatever number you want. But anyway, like, besides that, is he has to finish first or second in the rookie of the year. It's like so many steps.
I know.
Here that I would argue that if they're doing it, it is, again, incompetent. But I would not say, I want to be careful. I think words are valuable, Ryan. I've built my life around words.
Yeah.
I think one of the troubles we have in things in sports and beyond is we look for grievance. We look for reasons to be miserable. And I think that the Yankees might have a multi-pronged decision going on here, which is they ultimately will play Dominguez the last 18 games of the season and keep his rookie status, which is a strategy that they're doing. We can disagree with the strategy without thinking that part of the strategy is we're going to play him, but we're going to keep his rookie status. And the other thing we're going to do by doing this is slap our fans in the face.
Well, I guess
they're aware of how you feel.
Yeah.
They're still allowed to make decisions. You know, like the Cubs in 15 wait 3 weeks to bring Chris Bryant up. Like, that's a decision. By the way, how would Met fans feel now? Would you have been okay with the Mets waiting 3 weeks in 2019 with Pete Alonso so he wouldn't be a free agent until after next season? The Mets did the right thing by their fans. They brought up Pete Alonso in a season where they wouldn't even make the playoffs. He did great. He set a rookie home run record. They did the right thing. Nobody should graduate medical school and be told, now you got to wait 6 months to be a doctor. When you're ready to be a major league player, you should play in the major leagues. But strategically, the Mets were within their kind of fake rights where it's like, oh, we want to see Alonso play first base. He's not great at turning the double play. Wait 3 weeks like the Cubs had done, and then have control of a player for an extra year. And we wouldn't be sitting and doing are the Mets going to sign him or not until next year. So it is okay for teams to have multi-pronged decisions.
Right. Service time manipulation is happening still.
It is service time manipulation. And again, remember, I want you to listen to what I said.
Yeah.
I think service time manipulation is hard. When you're ready to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, you shouldn't be told you got 6 months.
Right.
You're doing it. I am on the side of the players at 100%. 100%. When you're ready to play, you should play. But the Yankees probably would argue that for a 5-day period or whatever we're dealing with here, the amount of difference between Verdugo and Dominguez in any 5-day period isn't worth the difference between potentially getting a draft pick in 27. You and I could argue that it's wrong tactically.
Correct.
It's certainly wrong to the kid and to the spirit of the sport. But they are playing a strategy that's played league-wide by teams.
Okay.
And that we can see the impact now with Alonso, that the Mets didn't play it, so they don't get the 7th year, and they're having to make that decision a year earlier. I would bring Dominguez up. If I wanted to manipulate it, I could manipulate it with him up.
Right.
Hey, I got to keep Verdugo in.
Play him 2 out of 3 games instead of every day.
I would do that. And we also don't know. I mean, it is possible they're never bringing Dominguez up this year.
Correct.
Like, so I just want to be careful in our verbiage in what we're saying.
That's fine.
I think they should bring Dominguez up. I think that they might be doing a multi thing, but they are a very, very sensitive organization. They know how you and your brethren feel. And they are not sitting around not bringing a guy up to slap you in the face. They are exacting a strategy that you don't like.
Yeah, so that's the strategy I would attack.
Include let's piss off Ryan Sampson.
No, I hear you. So the thing that it does affect, and to your 5-day period that you're saying that this could happen, the 5 days you could blow a half game lead in the AL East, and all of a sudden you can be 4 games behind the Orioles if they go on a hot streak, and you continue to reel as an organization and play 500 or sub 500 baseball. Right? Because again, you've lost 9 straight rubber matches. I don't know why that is. They win the first game and then they always lose that second game. It's crazy to me that still happens. But they continue to play 500 or sub 500 baseball. The other part about the Dominguez thing I think we need to talk about too, and this is where I would ask you on your opinion and what you've seen when rosters expand and everything, is let's say September 10th, 11th, whatever it is, he gets 20 games at left field. Is that enough at bats for you, Joel, to feel confident and that this kid's seen enough pitches where, okay, guess what? MLB postseason, now this is the most important pitch every single time you see in every inning you play. Is that going to be enough for this kid?
I mean, it is or it isn't. Like, why is 20 not good, but 25 would be good?
But again, this is part of the argument where
it's all hypothetical. Like they might lose the next 5. The Orioles might win the next 5. Like I just can't. I personally can't live in the world. I would bring them up.
Okay.
Because I think they're playing for everything, and I wouldn't worry about feelings. I wouldn't worry about a draft pick 2 years from now.
So if you were playing for everything, then you should be calling him up already.
And playing Cabrera at third base.
Correct. In defensive substitutions for Jazz. Yeah.
And if I put Hill in the bullpen and like what I see, Clay Holmes becomes the 8th inning guy. Like I'm playing for everything.
So that's what's
on your short thing. Francisco Rodriguez, I think, pitched 5 major league games in late September in 2002 when the Angels won. Now, bullpen's different. I get it. And then was a difference maker in the Angels winning their only World Series ever that year. So I think, look, part of this, and Rizzo's
they did it with DJ, right? Like they said to DJ, eventually they gave him every day at first base. And then I saw Oswaldo Cabrera before they called Rizzo up. Hey, you're going to get a shot at first base because they just can't do LeMahieu anymore. To your point, he seems like he's a player that shot. Oh, not to mention they're financially committed to him for another 2 years after this. So they were willing to pull the plug on that. But Verdugo is the one that they keep holding on to. And that's where we get angry as fans.
Can I suggest something? I have to keep going back. I would bring Dominguez up.
No, I know.
I think the Yankees... I think Aaron Boone thinks Verdugo is a good baseball player.
Right.
A good total baseball player.
That's what
I always want to start with, we could suggest the guy is wrong, and then maybe he's incompetent or you don't like what he's seeing, etc. Remember, he stuck with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa a couple of years ago at shortstop.
That's another one.
Like I kept hearing from their people about his defensive metrics, and I'm like, right, but we see in Fenway Park, he's got the yips. Yes. Like, are you watching the fucking games or not? And then finally, in the most important games of the year, they finally agreed.
Put Cabrera at shortstop.
He kind of looks scared, and I'm like, yeah, he looked scared all year. This is the way he's looked all year.
Yep.
You guys had there's good metrics on Gleyber Torres at shortstop. Watch the fucking games. There's good metrics on Gary Sanchez catching. Watch the games. The metrics have great value, but and it leads to another thing, and it's probably part of off-season shows. I don't even know if we're doing off-season shows, but if off-season shows we do, which is I think the Yankees, I think every team should feel this way.
Yeah.
I think every team should feel this way. But I think a New York team, especially the New York team with the most pressure on it all the time, has to think about the energy of the players they bring in. If you bring in the kind of like Verdugo's an interesting guy because he's high energy in good times and low energy in bad times. Like, nope, failure is part of this game. You've got to give me energy every day. Trent Grisham is a low energy player. Until he got yelled at, pulled from a game recently, Gleyber Torres was a low energy player that you had lived with for 6 years.
Right.
I do think talent is the most important thing you could have in the sport, but you play every day, and the tenor with which you play matters. There's this thing that is currently and maybe forever not quantifiable by metrics and numbers, but we are dealing with human beings. And I know I am a schoolyard baseball player, basketball player, I play everything. But that emotion of when you're playing with somebody who's playing hard, you play harder. No matter what level it is.
Right. The rest of the team feels that energy.
Schoolyard, A ball, the major leagues. Like, you're like, oh, that guy's giving his all. It's like sharing the ball, right? In basketball, it's like, oh, if one guy's freaking chucking, you're like, fuck it, I'll chuck too.
Yeah.
Right? But when the ball's moving, everybody moves it. When one guy's defending his ass off, you're like, well, I better defend my ass off. And I know baseball is a more individualized sport, but I think when guys start getting away with, in the long season, bullshit, then other guys are like, like that. You didn't punish that guy for the bullshit. And so I think the Yankees have to think a lot more than just what's on a piece of graph paper and think about the energy, like watch a player play. You need to have your scouts out and don't tell me you got it all. I don't even have to have the scout there for exit velocity, arm strength. Tell me, here's this 100 run times to first base. Is there a 4, 5, 6, 5, 7, 4, 2, 5, 5? Like, if there's this, keep them on the other team. Don't put them on your team, because I think part of this inconsistency of the Yankees this year is about more than is quantifiable currently.
Yeah, no, I would agree, Joel. I think that's a good way of putting it. There is a lot of low energy guys on that team, and it's fun though when you see guys like Jasson, who is a high energy guy, it seems like, and he makes that play where he steals third, the ball gets thrown into third down the line, and he gets home, and that's a high energy player. That's a high energy guy. So maybe that balances it out a little bit. But Verdugo, it's the conversation we're all going to be talking about until Dominguez hopefully gets called up. But like you said, the Yankees could choose ultimately, hey, we want him to keep working on. He's missed a lot of time with injuries. I could see the other side of it too. But at the end of the day, I just feel you're wronging the fans. But I understand what you're saying, Joel. It's not, that's wording is proper. It's not wronging the fans. It's not wronging the fans. It's upsetting the fans. It's upsetting the fans. I understand.
Right? Like, because again, wronging the fans would be they're purposely doing it.
I understand.
Like, they are upsetting the fans.
Correct.
Who want a different outcome of who they want. But I will say that the fans always call for the backup quarterback in every sport.
Yeah, but the backup quarterback is the pretty one that has a strong ass arm, can hit, switch hitter, can help the team right now, and is a highly touted prospect. Well, we got to move on though. We got to move on. We got to go to due-up though.
He could, and again, I would.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's go to due-up. So there's this. I wanted to ask you this. What are the 3 things that you think, Joel, this Yankees team, that has to happen to this team in order for them to win this division and secure this division? What are 3 things that you need to see out of this Yankees team for them to win this division in the AL East? Is it a better bullpen? Do they need Scott Efros, who looked like, I could see why they didn't call him up for a while, and you had alluded to this, which is interesting. You see him, didn't look good yesterday. So does the bullpen need to be better? Is that Nestor Cortez and Luis Gil?
I was going to use that Frost's name also. I just wrote Marinaccio and someone else are going to get called up as placeholders. I think those 2 guys are placeholders until Schmidt and Hill get here. Right. And if Hamilton gets here also, then I assume it's Tim Mazer becomes the other guy out. And I think they're probably going to play some version of Legion Ball in the postseason around everyone not named Garrett Cole, which is, hey, load up the bullpen. How about this? Is if you said I could only see Hill in the bullpen or Dominguez in left field, I would do Hill in the bullpen.
Well,
Now I would do both.
Now let's not forget Luis Hill threw a rehab start yesterday, 80 pitches. So it seems like they're still keeping him built up to be a starter.
I do, and I think that their plan might be to put Nestor in the bullpen as the second lefty.
Because yesterday was Nestor's day and Luis Hill pitched yesterday. And
if I were betting,
yeah,
that's what I would say. I am going to be the guy who goes down on this ship, which is you know how I feel. It's about energy and confidence.
Yeah.
Like Nestor Cortez is never going to be afraid to pitch a big game. And I would not be afraid to start Nestor Cortez in a big game. I wouldn't. And I think you're going to lose. I think you're going to say to him, go in the bullpen, and I think you're going to lose him. Maybe not. Maybe he is. Remember, he's a free agent after next year. The last thing he wants to do is start losing value as, hey, the team who has him and knows him the best just decided he shouldn't be a starter.
I wonder, Joel, and maybe this is what's your point. If they do move Nestor into the bullpen, are they thinking strategically as a team? We have the flamethrower to start the game, Luis Hill, and then we have the nasty lefty coming out of the bullpen to finish off. And that's a pretty deadly combination when you think about it, if you could formulate that.
Yes, I think that's what they're going to do.
Okay.
I would put Hill back there. Again, I would want to see it for these few weeks because what I don't know about Hill is how often in a week can he pitch? Will he throw it over the plate coming in as a reliever? How long does he take to warm up to get him in the game? But I think we all agree one of the key elements the Yankees have missed this year out of a bullpen is someone who could come in and blow away somebody. And the energy that comes from a reliever that could do it.
Yeah.
And I would try it.
Okay.
I would try it. I think the Yankees would argue that they'd rather have somebody who could do that from the front end and control it. And they're thinking Schmidt, Heel, Cole, Rodon, which will be another interesting one because it means why would Marcus Stroman even be on a postseason roster?
Well, you're financially committed to him again next year.
You don't have to put him on a roster. You could, because I think, again, they're going to play Legion ball. And so if you thought, for example, that Cortez, Hamilton,
Cousins has developed into that guy now too. Luke Weaver.
So I think they'll get to 13, and maybe Stroman will be part of it because they'll say, hey, if someone gets blown up early, Stroman could come in and give length. But I think they're in a fascinating period of whose feelings are they about to piss off over the next few weeks. And it will be such a fascinating thing if it's Stroman, because remember the fight between Cashman and Stroman is Cashman saying we didn't think he'd be in our postseason roster. Now he goes and signs the
crazy.
guy, and he might not be in the guy's postseason. Now he's pitched much better. He might be in the postseason roster because again they might feel like he's not going to be afraid, etc. But we know, like, the one thing with Stroman's pretty certain, even though he struck out a bunch of guys this time, is he's going to be a guy where the ball is in play. And traditionally, we think of postseason starters as people you want to have blow folks away if they can. Having said all that, I don't know that I'm going to get to 3. I think Cole has to be Cole at some point.
Okay.
Because
he did not look good his last start against the Nationals.
Right. The last time the Yankees won a championship, CC Sabathia was the version of Cole last year, which was the ace horse, the guy who was at the very top of the sport as far as stuff, but the guy who also pitched a lot. Remember, he pitched on 3 days rest twice in that postseason. It was a crazy postseason with the television rules where the Yankees could use just 3 starters. And it's one of the reasons they even won a World Series 15 years ago. If it was a legitimate schedule, I'm not sure if they do, but they did win. And Sabathia is a kind of like forever Yankee for what he did in that postseason. The Yankees need Cole to be able to make 5 or 6 starts if they go from soup to nuts and be as good as – I haven't looked at the numbers in a long time. I think Sabathia, they won like 5 or 6, Sabathia's 6 starts that year. He pitched great throughout the whole thing. And of all the things where you say like checklist, my second one would be, is Judge going to hit in the postseason?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to put a
Well,
damper on a 63 or where it's 59, wherever he ends up, if he has a 185 strikeout every 3 at bats postseason
right.
with a couple of home runs.
But even for them to win this division, you saw this past week, if you hold him in check and don't let him hit the ball out of the ballpark, this team does struggle to win baseball games.
And Soto went 0 for 12 in Washington.
Yep.
He got a couple of hits over the weekend, but he was 1 for 6 with runners on base over the weekend, Soto. And Wells slowed down.
Yep. Well, he had the great game Friday night, but then, he did slow down a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. And Stanton's the guy who's hitting the hell out of
I
the
know
ball right now. But, this is the baseball season. Soto and Judge are great. And, you ride them as much as possible.
And you might have seen also a little preview, and I think we've talked about this a lot. The way the Cardinals navigated around Judge, intentionally walking him a couple of times, that's probably the postseason formula for a lot of teams.
It's definitely the postseason formula.
Yeah.
No one in a game situation. So I've probably said this on the show. It's probably the most influential guy in my career was Buck Showalter when he managed the Yankees and coached for the Yankees in 90 and 91, managed 92 to 95. Those 6 years felt like a PhD program in baseball. And Buck, one of the things Buck said all the time is the art of managing is having your head hit the pillow and sleep come. And that meant you got to make decisions that are I could go to sleep tonight, no matter what the outcome is. I couldn't sleep if I let Aaron Judge beat me. I could sleep if I let Austin Wells or Giancarlo Stanton beat me. Right? Aaron Judge might be the best hitter in the world right now. The best combination of power and overall hitter in since Barry Bonds. And I just couldn't sleep if Aaron Judge beats me. And that's how I would manage. I think there's 2 ways to manage, Ryan. One is that, and the other one is just the one I'm sure other people said it before me, but I do all the time is always do what you hope the other team hopes you don't do.
Yeah.
If you bring in a guy and think what would the Yankees want here? Oh, the Yankees want Aaron Judge to take 3 swings here. Fuck that. I'm out on that. I want to do, it's I felt a couple of times watching postseason games that the opposing team was okay with what Aaron Boone was doing. He didn't go for the kill shots a couple of times in his history as the Yankee manager postseason, where I'm this is the long season's gone, man.
Yeah.
I think the manager in the postseason needs to be irrational fans. Because
I don't know if you want that.
No, I do. Because I do think that all that matters is this second.
Oh, 100%. It's the most every pitch is important.
And I think the thing fans don't see often during the regular season, they're very emotional like you are, other fans, is the manager has to think about 162 games. He has to think about the feelings in his clubhouse.
Right.
In the postseason, every day is the season. And fuck everybody's feelings. You got to win the game. And sometimes that's a little tougher transition for some to kind of come to peace with it. And everything is always easier sitting in the press box. Yeah. I always recognize oh shit, I'm sitting up here. This is an easy decision. I don't have to go tell Nestor Cortez he's in the bullpen.
Well, those are 3 good things, Joel. I mean, the Nestor Cortez, Luis Gil situation, Clark Schmidt as well. Garrett Cole being Garrett Cole. And the third thing is Aaron Judge. How are you going to perform down the stretch?
Can I just throw in one of the other ones? And it's just they need to play clean and crisp for an extended period.
Fuck yes.
They are a veteran team in the large. I mean, we haven't discussed it yet, but Antti Volpe has a little version of the yips going on right now where the ball is kind of glancing off of him a lot more. The throws aren't quite as true as they've been. Maybe just a slump. People have defensive slumps, but that hasn't looked good because he was whatever was happening on the offensive side of the ball. The defense was always kind of strong to better than strong, and that hasn't been great for a little bit. Chisholm is still a work in progress. You get both the fantastic completed and the rudimentary blown with him right now. I think he's probably on the way to someplace better. He is so athletic and so confident in himself that I assume he will get to a better place, but that might not be until 2025.
Right. But he also probably is going to second base
Like
next year
Soto
too.
played by far his worst defensive game of the
That
year
was ugly yesterday.
where he like it was like every ball in the air was an adventure. They have not put since the first over
the first game
half,
against, but the first game against the Mets
is a half of a season.
Yeah.
They're essentially 40-40 for the last 80
Yeah.
games. They're 40-40 for a bunch of reasons. One of them is there has not been a consistency of playing well. And that's beyond the hit it well, throw it, pitch it well. Like they haven't played tactically, aesthetically well they'll do it here and there, but we haven't seen the stretch. Like I got to say this is the Mets from the beginning of the season to today, the Mets spent the first 50 games of the season defensively dreadful. Yeah. I mean, what they didn't execute was off the charts. And every 30-ish games, they've gotten a half a grade. The defense has gotten better for the Mets as the season has gone along. Now, some of that is Iglesias at second. Really
incredible. He's amazing.
So now you have that double play combination up the middle. They complete some stuff that the Yankees don't complete if you watch the two teams play. And so they have kind of gotten better. And the Yankees, who started at a high point, they just haven't been as consistent at keeping it a 27-out game. And someone like Will Warren, Andy Volpe has to complete a double play the other day. You've got Will Warren on the mound. It's going to be a tough day with Will Warren. Stroman is a guy. The ball's going to be in play. There was a day, and to Stroman's credit, I think he limited it to one run, but it took him 35 pitches. He needs to get 6 outs in the first inning, recently, where I'm watching and go, this is a 6-out inning. I don't think the ball's left the infield yet. And so they haven't played crisp for an extended period of time. And I don't know how you get through 4 weeks of October if you never kind of put together that extended period of run the bases well, outs that should be outs are outs. When you should turn a double play, you get both outs. You keep runners in order the right way. They just haven't done it.
No, they haven't.
Say even a week at a time.
No, because I would argue Tuesday against the Nationals, that first game in that series, they played one of the best games of the year. I mean, defensively, they were in, everyone was locked in. They played good baseball. It looked and felt all right, the Yankees are locked in, but then you followed up with the next two games, which gets me. And now I'm going to go to Radio Irrational. All right. So this is my Radio Irrational take here, Joel. Carlos Rodon. I am sick and tired of seeing him and the antics on the mound with the pitch com, and he balks instead of stepping off the rubber in that situation because you have an issue with the pitch com in your head and you can't hear the pitches coming in. Instead, you act like a petulant child and you balk, and in goes a run, and now the inning starts getting away from you a little bit. Obviously, there's a bigger sample size with Carlos Rodon. We've seen him talk. He's flipped off the fans. He's not flipped off the fans. He's in the Rockies in Colorado last year. He had that moment. And then he's also been disrespectful to his pitching coach, Matt Blake, last year at the end of the season. For me, Carlos Rodon, I understand he's probably one of those high-energy guys. He's very emotional, and he shows it. But I'm tired of seeing immaturity in that moment, and it could cost you in a game in the postseason if you do something like that. That's my Radio Rational take. I'm sick and tired of seeing that from Carlos Rodon. It seems like it just continues with this guy. It's that moment he can have that blow up, and it's going to cost you.
Grace under pressure. Probably the second person on my list after Buck Showalter, who I learned the most from, is Stick Michael, who was always incredibly gracious to me when I did something. And I remember one day we're standing in Himes, the Yankees minor league complex across from where Steinbrenner Field is. And he's talking about the 5 tools, hit for power, run, field, etc. And I said, Stick, I think there's probably about 10 of these. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, aptitude to use the 5 tools is a tool. Grace under pressure so that the tools play at the biggest moment is a skill, right? Staying healthy and durable is a skill. So the other 5 are the ability to use the 5, right? It's great to have to be able to throw the ball hard. Do you know how to mix up your pitchers? Are you when it's second and third and 1 out, can you take a deep breath and execute a pitch? And I think Rodon has shown The stuff is like t-shirt and a pair of shorts on a mound watching a tryout camp. Oh, who's that? But the grace under pressure, and by the way, all we're going to have is pressure from here on in. No such thing as a Yankees got to win this division.
Yeah, you're playing for a division right now.
Right? And then they got to win a championship. That's the season. There is no second place in the regular season and anything else. Like, at the minimum, you got to get to the World Series. And so everything else is not going to be acceptable. So there's no such thing as a non-pressure start from here to the finish line unless they go on about a 12-game winning streak. The Orioles go on a 12-game losing streak, and the last couple of weeks don't matter. I assume that series against the Orioles at the stadium is going to be a
epic,
big series where every pitch, every base runner matters. And I think this is one of those ones that seems, when I've used this term, really pisses off Yankee officials, but I use it anyway. I think the Yankees are very good at identifying a lot of stuff that is helpful. I think they've lost feel. And it's about low energy players. It's about who has grace under pressure, and things of these items that feel between the margins of understanding the skill level of a player and putting together a team. They have had less feel to me in recent years. And again, you would know Rodon. I'm on record. I wrote it. I wouldn't have signed Carlos Rodon. And by the way, Carlos Rodon's a good guy. I like dealing with Carlos Rodon. This is not ever, I think sometimes when people watch this, they think it's personal. Carlos Rodon is an easy, like in a not great clubhouse to work, by the way. He's easy. He's easy. Like he's so not personal or anything. And I think his heart is totally in this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is totally in this. But I do think you don't acquire grace under pressure as time goes by. We're a victim of our parents and our DNA, who we are. And I'm not sure he can get to that place. And the ball is going to be in his hand in big spots. And I don't know. But you know who he reminds me so much of? And it was the comparison I made when I wrote out why I wouldn't have signed him. And this guy helped them win the World Series in 2009. I think he's the left-handed AJ Burnett. I think he's high stuff, but when the stuff is going wrong around him, he doesn't keep a one-run inning. Burnett was like that. It's like you have such good stuff, and you've decided, I'll throw it harder. I'm mad. And it's like, now it's a 4-run inning. And Burnett had the kind of stuff that could dominate, and they don't win in 2009. Remember, they only used 3 starters. The start against the Angels and the start against the Phillies are as big as, so with everything Sabathia did, he really helped them win a championship that year. And so he was key. Rodon is left-handed Burnett. The stuff is high in New York, because outside of New York, Burnett was good. In New York, is he going to, with everything that's in play all the time? You know, it's Joey Gallo comes to New York, and that first game he played, I remember telling a teammate of his, I said, you know, it's July 31st. I think he was traded for on like the 29th or 30th, so he played the 30th or the 31st. I said, you know, today's the biggest game Joey Gallo has played in his career. And the guy goes, what? I go, I don't think he's been on a team even over 500, much less in a pennant race in September. And I said, no matter what happens in the game, he could strike out 3 times and hit a homer. The sideline reporter is going to go, Joey, you're great. You're great. It's not going to happen in New York, right? Like, it's really every pitch is going to matter, including the one on July 31st. Look at your passion about things like the roster that's overflowing.
Yeah.
And great. I only have a job because of your passion. Good. Don't ever lose your passion. Let's fight here, but don't fucking lose it.
I will never, trust me.
Right? But everything is on the line all the time in this city. It really matters. Baseball really matters here. The Yankees in particular, because of the history more than the Mets, have kind of a lunacy about them, around them. So I just think some people can't handle it.
No, I know. That just seemed like a moment right there for Rodon.
Was really a good major league pitcher outside of New York. And I think that's who we have in New York right now. Again, we have the left-handed AJ Burnett.
Yeah, it just seemed like a moment for Rodon. It's like you got to be bigger than that. You got to be more mature in that situation because what happens again in the postseason or a start against the Orioles, let's say in that series, it's like if that happens, you can't like you're gonna be killed. Like I understand it was against the Nationals, so maybe it's like forgotten a little bit. For me, I recognize there, and I go to a moment. I'm like, man, what the hell are we doing here? Like the pitch com, like that's what you're crying about right now. In that moment, do not balk and let her run in. That shouldn't have happened.
Yep.
That's my radio rational take. Let's go to Hoganalytics. Our guy Tommy Hogan's gonna give us some stats. What's up, Tommy?
Guys, what's going on? Joel, before I get into Hoganalytics, I do want to ask you about something earlier in the week that I thought kind of shed some light. You mentioned how the Yankees have lost some feel lately. And I thought that they're like, I know this is a trigger word for a lot of irrational baseball fans, Yankee fans, analytics. They're always, every decision is analytically driven. But I thought when Aaron Boone didn't pinch hit for DJ LeMahieu Tuesday night in the ninth inning, I believe it was first and second, 1 out, and he just saw 3 left-handed hitters get base hits. And he said, I'm sticking with DJ LeMahieu because Kyle Finnegan, who was on the mound, had reverse splits. So he pointed to analytics. He pointed to a stat, a split, when he just saw 3 left-handed hitters have good at-bats and the other 3 righties or 2 or 3 righties got out. He went with the analytics. And then the next night, same exact situation, a couple runners on, Kyle Finnegan on the mound. Then he pinch hits for DJ LeMahieu. I wonder what you thought about those 2 decisions.
Yeah, I will say that Earl Weaver was using splits in the 60s and 70s, right? Like that this is not some totally new phenomenon about this. And I will say also that teams are using splits that are different also. Ground ball pitcher, ground ball hitter, fly ball pitcher, fly ball hitter, guy who can elevate a fastball, guy who can hit a fastball. Like there's more to this than, oh, let's go to Baseball Reference. How is he against lefties and righties? And the teams always know more than us. And I do think that at bat by LeMahieu feels like the last time that Boone was going to trust him. Because there was he could have brought him in. I think this is maybe what you're talking about. Or I thought it was in the Cardinals series maybe where there was it Friday night? Or maybe it was the National series where it was as obvious there was a lefty on the mound and he didn't bring in LeMahieu to hit. And he had LeMahieu on the bench. And I was like, oh, he might now be like, this is it. And look, it leads to a bigger question, and we're running long already, so let's not go down another wormhole, which is the roster better if Hal Steinbrenner says, I'm willing to eat $30 million the next 2 years? Like, if Rizzo's back and playing first base, and I guess you could, when Rizzo will get pinch run for in a big spot, so I guess LeMahieu could go in and defend. That is his job now. I would argue he's also a better third baseman than Chisholm. Again, are you going to play him at third base? For Chisholm late in the game, I would still go with Cabrera if I was going to do that. There's not much of a role for LeMahieu. I think he's got position 14. I don't think Hal Steinbrenner is yet up to, remember, they still have to play Aaron Hicks another $10 million next year for that. And this isn't Steve Cohn, who's willing to have that total get up to 50, 60, $70 million of dead money. So I think we're going to see LeMahieu get to spring training next year, but he's going to be the 14th guy now. And so they're going to operate with a 13-man bench, 13-man positional group in September. But I don't think he makes the postseason roster then. But Tommy, I think these decisions have more layered into it than lefty righty, reverse splits, etc.
Right, but in the same exact scenario that Tommy laid out, though, it's the same situation 2 nights in a row.
But I think it was, I'm going to try this one more time.
For the first time, but then the second time you're like, I'm done. I'm now going to Cabrera.
I think I'd be surprised now. Like, when does DJ LeMahieu even start a game? The rest of the way. I just think. I think we saw the end of 2024, at least. Now, it could be surprised. I think that the manager, I'm going to do this quick. We're doing this the other day. Me and Dave Lennon from Newsday were walking back together after the Yankee game on Saturday. And I was recalling, like, it was a Showalter story. Managers go with the guys who kind of like get them there and they trust in a way that like fans, reporters don't. And it's like in 95, the Yankees were in the playoffs and he decided, I'm never taking David Cone out of this game. Like we were talking about the difference between a guy can't go third time around the order. And here's David Cone up at almost 150 pitches. And he's just like, I'm not taking him out of the game. It's David Cone. I believe in the guy so absolutely. And then he rushes Mariano Rivera in the game. Mariano Rivera blows away Mike Blowers on 3 pitches, and he puts Jack McDowell in the game. And that was an injured Jack McDowell because he managed with I know how we got to the story. Kyle Gibson won the first game in for the Cardinals in the Bronx since 1964. Bob Gibson had won that game. So we're talking Gibson. And I told the story of the Cardinal manager, who I believe in 64 is Johnny Keane. Don't hold me to it. I think that's who it is. Gibson is wilting in Game 7. And this is Gibson. He started 3 World Series games. He probably started 40 games during the season. He's probably well over 300 innings that year. He's wilting. And he holds on. I think he gets Mantle out in a big spot. And after the game, the reporters said, why did you stick with Gibson? And he said, I invested in Bob Gibson's heart. And I'm like, that's what Buck Showalter did with Cone and McDowell. And I think sometimes we miss this. And by the way, it happens less because in an analytical world, when it comes to pitching, nobody invests in anyone. Like, except for maybe Rob Thompson and Zach Wheeler. That's it. But I like the sport better when people invested in people's heart. And I think that in some way, what we don't see is DJ LeMahieu is a hard worker. He is a well-liked guy in his clubhouse. He has had a great career. That Aaron Boone is sitting there and he so badly wants DJ LeMahieu to show up again that he invests in his heart. And at this point, I think even Boone, after that at bat against the Nationals, said, I can't do it anymore. And of course, I'm going to be wrong about that. He's going to start a game this week, and I'll be like, well, I guess I was wrong about that. But I thought about it this week on the Gibson thing, 60 years apart.
Well, he'll probably get another start against a lefty. And my Hoganalytics deals with the Yankees' issues against lefties this season. We saw in that National Series, 4 of their 5 starters are lefties, so the Yankees get 3 of them, of course. And that second game was started by Patrick Corbin, who's been one of the, if not the worst starting pitcher in baseball the last 3 years. Came into the game with the highest ERA among all qualified starters. He threw his first 6 shutout innings start since 2021, and that came against the Yankees in that second game. So I was interested in how these issues versus lefties will translate to the playoffs. So I went through all of the lefties currently in a rotation for teams in the playoffs in the AL. And that's Matthew Boyd of the Guardians, Framber Valdez, and Yusei Kikuchi of the Astros. Cade Povich of the Orioles, and I threw Trevor Rogers in as well because I know he's down. He got sent down. Wouldn't be shocked if he comes back up, especially if they match up in the playoffs. And then the Twins, they have no lefties. The Royals, they have Cole Reagans. I went through, and the 11 guys that I chose on the Yankees to include in all of this are the 9 that we saw yesterday, your normal 9 that they're going to start, and DJ LeMahieu and Jose Trevino. So those are guys at least a week ago we're getting bats against left-handed hitters. Those 11 guys against the starters on AL teams currently in the playoffs, 224 combined against those guys with 10 home runs. It's 67 for 299. Not a small sample size. 300 at-bats against those starters. I think it's something that they don't really have a fix for. They're hoping DJ LeMahieu could help. Jasson Dominguez struggles against lefties. He's not really a guy that can help in left field for Verdugo. I think it could end up being something that we point to in the playoffs, and it's not just a regular season thing.
God, you're giving me PTSD over here, Hogan.
And remember, you know, it also is going to show up if anyone has a big left-handed reliever.
Yeah,
he's going to get an extended run against them, and it's not fixable now. It's going to be about, like, does Stanton make some teams pay from the right side? Does Gleyber Torres make some teams pay from the right side? Who knows? But on your PTSD, I mean, I did write this the other day, is the Yankees are heading straight for the Astros.
Yes, again, that's what I'm saying.
The Yankees are so 6-1, left the Astros for dead in May. And here are the Astros are going to win their division way easier than the Yankees would win theirs if the Yankees even win their division. And they're going to be sitting there in the postseason. And somehow these two teams are going to play each other. And at some point, I remember a couple of years ago, I called up George Brett. You know, the Royals lost to the Yankees 75, 76, 77, or 76, I'm sorry, 76, 77, 78 in the playoffs. They finally beat them. You know, the big George Brett homer off of Gossage. And I said, you know, like when a team owns you, you know, when we went through the whole thing, I think the Astros are now even more in the Yankees' head than the Yankees were ever in that version of the Royals' heads. And with everything that happened this season, going 6-1 against them, you're right. Framber Valdez and Yusei Kikuchi are going to get starts. By the way, Valdez is pitching as well as anyone in the American League. By the way,
Kikuchi pitched well in his last start too.
That lost a ton of pitching. Blanco, Arrighetti, Hunter Brown are all pitching great. Their pitching program is spectacular. It keeps regenerating with new people every time we think that group might be dead. Yeah, by the way, like I don't really want to go to Houston again. I've spent a ton of my life in Houston. But it's such a good story that I'll deal with it if I have to be in Houston. So great, bring it on, because it's got the most drama and the greatest storyline. I know Yankee fans might not want to see it, but I kind of want to see it.
If you want to go into the Astros, 9 for 45 off Valdez, those 11 hitters.
Jesus Christ.
That's 200 with 2 homers. Kikuchi a little bit better, but probably if I broke it down, probably of late, it's probably worse. But they're 39 for 162, 241 with 5 homers off Kikuchi. But like I said, in the last 2 years, they started not seeing him as well. So that's probably even worse the last 2 years.
Yeah. I'll see you October 12th at near the Crawford box.
It wouldn't be the first round because the Astros are going to be the third division winner. They play the last wild. So, it would be a little bit late. They're not going to see him in the first round, but you're right. It's going to happen.
They're going to find their way to each other.
You're right. They will.
Bring it on. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
You guys are going to die, and I'm going to be like, this is a great story.
It's going to be brutal for us. It's going to be brutal for us, Joel.
I root for stories.
They're the boogeyman. Yeah. They are the boogeyman for the Yankees right now.
That's the best potential. You know, it's not I kept thinking to myself, what's the Michael Corleone settle all scores postseason for the Yankees would be is it they're the wild card and they beat Boston, and Boston's the 6th seed. It's 3-6 or whatever however that would be 4-5, whatever. It would be Boston. Step on Baltimore to make sure that they don't rise again. Beat the Astros in the ALCS and beat the Dodgers, the West Coast Yankees in the World Series, or the Mets. And I'm like, that's the Michael Corleone postseason for the Yankees.
Yeah, it feels like that's where it's going to. Tommy, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
No problem.
All right, Joel, let's bring this all home. Joel's Notebook. I want to talk about roster expansion. We've talked so much about rosters today, but there is, I'm sure, in your vast history of covering this sport, there is got to be a good story about roster expansion in your time in covering.
So there's 2 columns that I wrote about rules way too much. One, I didn't do it this year. It's funny. MLB guys were braced for me to do it again, which is I still don't understand why teams can't trade draft picks. It's the only thing that would make draft night interesting to the country is if you heard, the Yankees are trying to get the first pick in the draft and they're offering Jasson Dominguez or something like that. And you'd be like, oh, crap, I got to turn to that, right? Or whatever, because it would involve players as opposed to guys who are about to go play in Peoria and you're not going to see for 3 or 4 years. So that's one. The other one I wrote for years was about how stupid roster expansion was, where you play one game for 5 months and then the most meaningful games of the season, literally by rule. And remember, it was 25-man rosters then. One team could show up with 40 men and one team could show up with 25. And I said, you know what the definition of a stupid rule is? Is if it didn't exist and I proposed it today, and you laughed me out of the room, it means you should probably kick it out of the rule book. And you would laugh at me if I said, I got an idea. Let's have a rule where one team could play with 40 and one could play with 25. So they finally did a better version of this. Is you only get to 28. It feels a little more like the regular season, but the bad teams get to see prospects. The good teams maybe add a pinch runner, extra reliever to get through the month. Feels fairer. I have always been a stickler that I said it before, which is when a guy's ready to play in the major leagues, he should be allowed to play in the major league. Do not manipulate the roster. That's a terrible thing to do to somebody who graduated his school as much as a doctor graduated medical school, a lawyer graduated law school. Whatever you do, right. You are now that thing. Don't hold the person back if they deserve to go to the highest level. Conversely, don't give a spot to a guy who doesn't. And I remember I couldn't tell you the year, but there was a year like Tom Glavine was kind of close with Jeff Wilpon. I think they played a lot of golf together maybe. And the Mets gave a 40-man roster spot to Mike Glavine one September, which was, Tom's brother. And it felt like just like a total hey, we're going to do a nice thing for a friend. And I think about all those guys in the minor leagues. You hear the stories about a guy who finally makes it after 10, 12 years. And he makes it because he makes it. Like a team has a real need and he's performing maybe better than he ever has. And he gets his cup of coffee and he gets into the baseball encyclopedia or on Baseball Reference, etc. And he has that for the rest of his life and he's earned it. Iris really didn't like that one. I felt like that is a exclusive club that should have the strongest velvet rope in the world. And the only way to get beyond that velvet rope is to really deserve to get beyond that velvet rope.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I feels like that moment right there probably is I don't want to say boys club, but men's club type moment. Like, hey, you're part of the family. We'll do a good thing for you, and we'll bring you up, and we'll bring up your. It's like, come on, like we're calling it out for what it is, and I can understand.
So more like Goodfellas than a major league team.
Yes, exactly.
I took care of that thing for you.
Joel. This is a fun show for us. I'm glad we got to talk about roster expansion, Jasson Dominguez, Alex Verdugo, the postseason. This race for the AL East is going to be fun to watch all through September. And I'm looking forward to talking all about it with you, man, all September, man.
All right, Ryan and Tommy, all the best.
You too.